Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today on the show, we have Dewan Farhana. She is a physician and she's the founder of Doctor Finances, and she wrote the Kevin MD article, How Doctors Can Rush to Complete Their Wills. Dewan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you tell me your story and your journey to where you are today?
Sure. So I started my undergraduate degree at Rutgers University in New Jersey. I majored in cell biology and neuroscience. I completed my medical degree at Torrey College of Medicine in New York. I matched into PM&R, and rehab medicine was my area of interest. But I've always been a founder at heart. In high school and college, I started organizations. In medical school, I started the first medical Spanish class at my school. During clinical rotations, I started an organized patient queue at one of the hospitals after I noticed that the attending doctors were printing over 30 pages of patient information on their service each morning, and it was leading to a lot of confusion. So I designed and created a HIPAA compliance system to keep all the information organized and correlated with each doctor, team, and unit in a systematic way. And so this reduced minimizing the printing and increased the productivity. So I was generally always interested in technology. I was raised in the generation that used some of the first Apple and PC computers. So we learned about hard drives, motherboards, took about computers, learned about C++. But I didn't quite understand the magnitude of technology until I was in med school, and we started using these amazing products such as Dropbox and Evernote. And I was seeing how these amazing products were basically changing the world at a scale. And so while businesses were always built, the software part really intrigued me. And so I wanted to build something bigger and touch millions of people and scale it using software. So right after I graduated medical school, I had an opportunity to work at a startup with an amazing co-founder, and we decided to go for it. So we founded our startup, Betterness, which is a software that connects users to professional and certified home organizers. So our platform connects elderly, busy professionals, people with mental illness, veterans, small businesses to certified organizers that make the spaces very functional to improve the utility and quality of life. The home organization is a $26 billion industry, and we've raised funding from Rutgers Business School as well as angel investors. And so while working on the startup, I learned about robo-advisor softwares, and I got very intrigued, started learning about it, and that's how I discovered the world of personal finance. I discovered the principles of compound interest and how investing in low-cost index funds can really help your net worth grow exponentially. And that's where I got started. So I refinanced my loans, signed up for the life and disability insurance, 529s, Roth IRAs, and all of that. But I think what shocked me was that I was never taught this in school. And then I thought maybe it was just my school. But then I learned that no one was taught this in school, even if you went to elite school. So I started posting tidbits about it on Instagram. I started getting a lot of followers, and then slowly that transformed into a blog because there was significant detail and research that went behind it. And I also started the blog because I think that women approach finances in a different way compared to men, and I wanted to articulate that well. So most women definitely think things through more and tend to be risk averse. So taking that into consideration and the education investment strategy can help women tap into all the investing tools and strategies that are available today. And so because of that personal finance background, that's why I wrote the article on the estate planning.
Sure. So let's talk about estate planning. And you wrote this article on Kevin MD, How Doctors Can Rush to Complete Their Wills. And on this podcast, I've talked to several physician couples, and because they're both on the front lines, they're completing their wills, they're updating the wills because they want their children to be cared for in case both of them, God forbid, perish on the front lines. Now, what are some of the major issues that physicians need to think about when talking about estate planning and wills?
Sure. So I think that most people approach estate planning the wrong way, in a sense that they focus too much on the death and the dying part. But it's actually what estate planning and completing a will is taking care of your loved ones after you pass away. So in a sense, it's an expression of love. So I think the major thing that I wanted to convey in the article is the difference between the trust and a will. Almost everyone was rushing to complete a will, but if you are married, if you have assets, if you have children, the main thing that you want to complete for most people is the estate plan, which includes a living trust. because the will only designates the guardian to your children.
Mhm.
So it doesn't designate a trustee for your assets or a timeline of how things should be distributed. So if you think about it, you don't necessarily want to give your teenager access to your entire assets on the first day, for example. So that's essentially what the living trust does. It prevents your family from going through the very expensive and long probate process. And the trust also keeps your information private. The will, basically, you can pay a fee and have access to it, so the general public can have an access to your will. And also by having the trust, it can help you avoid estate taxes.
So when thinking about trust, I know that there are several different options. Can you go through some of the thinking behind what is the best choice for most physicians?
Yeah, so basically, first you want to think about who is the person that you want to designate as your trust, who is willing and able to handle it. You also want to think about when you want to distribute your assets, at what age. And then you want to think about basically the other additional things such as who should control your finances, as well as make the healthcare decisions for you.
Now, estate planning, is this something that physicians can do themselves, or do they need attorneys to do so? Because sometimes on my Facebook feed, I always have
Sure.
do it yourself estate planning, do it yourself wills. Now,
Mhm.
what do you advise?
So I personally went with a estate planning lawyer. I don't know if it's a woman thing or if it's but I prefer like just having someone who's an expert go through the entire process, just so making sure that the person who's an expert in the field can walk me through the process. So if you have something complicated, then you definitely want to have a lawyer go through it. But many people, many doctors have said they've completed online through Trust and Will or Legal Zoom, and it's been perfectly fine. So either process is fine. In my personal opinion, I would say it's better just to go do it through an attorney so you don't miss anything. But many people have completed it through an online process, and it's been perfectly fine.
Are there any issues specific to physicians when it comes to estate planning?
Not that I have come across as far as specific, because the estate is depending on how many assets you have, and if you have a difference in say divorces or stepchildren, or you share partnership. I think that's where the complication comes in, rather than physicians in particular.
Sure. So let's take a step back, and you blog at a site called Doctor Finances. Now, especially during the pandemic, what are some common personal finance issues that physicians need to be aware of?
Yeah. So one of the big things is definitely the emergency fund. Usually in the personal finance world, it's always recommended to have at least 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. But, a lot of people felt like it wasn't absolutely necessary because, you have insurances covering, for example, anything that happens to your car, you have the car insurance. Anything that happens to your home is the home insurance, and your health, and so on. So the emergency fund was necessary. It's recommended, but I don't think any of us thought of it coming to fruition until
Mhm.
this pandemic happened. So that's definitely one thing for the pandemic, is making sure that you have the emergency fund, using it. The second thing is, honestly, if you understand sort of how the stock market works, historically it has always gone up, and so there's actually really nothing to do in regards to your finances, like as far as investing is concerned. So if you're investing, you're not supposed to touch it, because if you do and you pull out your funds right now, you're not going to know when to put it back in, and the market will go back up. So it's just a long game, and you basically leave your low cost index funds, let it grow. The market will go up and down, but eventually it always goes up. And when you're at your retirement, you'll be able to retire comfortably.
Sure. Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that physicians don't get a lot of training when it comes to personal finance. Now, do you
Mhm.
advise physicians hire a financial advisor, or is this something that they can do themselves?
I absolutely think you can do it yourself. Hiring a financial advisor, as you probably, if you read a lot of the finance blogs, is, not all of them are basically what they call fee only certified. So they have other interests in mind. Many times they will sell you insurances to basically make money. And so you can do it yourself. If you would like to hire a financial advisor, just make sure you vet them very properly. Make sure that they're NAPA certified and they're fee-only advisors. But you can absolutely do it yourself. And that's kind of where I got started too, because of the robo-advisors. There's just some really fantastic tools out right now, such as Wealthfront and Betterment, that really help you do your own finances and handle it really well.
And for those who aren't familiar with robo-advisors, can you tell my audience a little bit more about what they are?
Yeah, sure. Basically, robo-advisors are investing that is done for you using automated services, using software. So you no longer need to hire a financial advisor to do the investing for you, but the software automatically does it for you. And so it's very easy and simple to use.
All right, we're talking to Dewan Farhana. She is a physician and she wrote the Kevin MD article, How Doctors Can Rush to Complete Their Wills. Now, you said a lot of physicians can manage their personal finances by themselves. Now, can you share any resources, perhaps online, that they could learn more about that?
Yes. So the OG of the physician finance world is, of course, the White Coat Investor. He writes some great, excellent, detailed articles on everything about finances. There's also Physician on Fire. He writes really well-written, very easy to understand articles. So that's a great place to start. My favorite finance book is Simple Path to Wealth, where he just breaks down how the entire market works, and it's just so simple and exactly what to do is in a step-by-step process. And then there's, of course, the Bogglehead, the forums, as well as the book that's also really excellent to get started.
Now, I want to ask a question away from personal finance. You're a
Mhm,
physician and you're a CEO, and that's sometimes a combination that's not often found. Now, do you
mhm.
think being a doctor made it easier or harder for you to go into that CEO role?
For me personally, I think it made it easier. I am honored to be a physician. Everyone in my family and all, of course, all of my best friends from medical school are physicians. We are able to take a lot of information, process it, and apply it in a short amount of time. At the end of the day, there are no shortcuts, and that's kind of what medicine teaches you is that you have to do the hard work. And for me, it made it much easier. I was able to understand how VC funding works, how to manage employees, especially having worked with patients from, a diverse amount of background and so on. So for me, it was easier. It helped me. And, I'm so proud and honored to be a physician and, as well as now being able to be a CEO.
And my final question, do you have a take-home message that you want to share with the Kevin MD audience?
Sure. So I think that if you're on the fence about your finances and you're not sure, I would say just get started. You'll be surprised at how empowered you feel after you take a handle of your finances. I know a lot of people feel that it might be crippling and, you may not know, like you can't buy things or, make decisions. But once you have a good handle of your finances, you'll feel so empowered. You will be able to make spending decisions quickly, consciously, and also donate very generously.
And how can people find out more about you?
Sure. So you can find me at Dr. Finances with the S, drfinances.com, and my Instagram handle is dr.finances.
Dewan, thank you so much for your time and insight, and thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.